Chapter 2. The magic school bus was chugging along the road. All of us kids had our binoculars out. We were staring at everything we passed. Trees, birds, even people in cars. I was sitting next to Uncle Cecil. We were right behind Miss Frizzle, who was driving the bus. I noticed that Uncle Cecil was holding his briefcase very carefully in his lap. "Uncle Cecil," I whispered, "can't you tell me what's—" I was interrupted by a shout from Ralphie in back of us. "Stop that, Dorothy Ann!" Dorothy Ann was examining Ralphie through her binoculars. "But Ralphie," she said, "you're such an interesting specimen." "I am not a specimen," Ralphie protested. "I'm a human." "Well, almost," D.A. said, rolling her eyes. Just then, Miss Frizzle asked Uncle Cecil a question. They began talking about migration patterns and other things that were way over my head. I started to squirm in my seat. It was really getting hot in the bus. We were all bundled up in our winter coats. "I'm hot," Arnold complained. He was sitting in the first seat across the aisle. "Me too," I said. "This bus feels like an oven." "Miss Frizzle," Arnold said, "can we turn on the air conditioning?" But Miss Frizzle was too wrapped up in driving and talking to Uncle Cecil. She didn't hear a word Arnold said. "Ralphie, please hold still." "D.A., stop it. Please stop." "Hey, Phoebe," Arnold said. "Can you reach the air conditioning button on the dashboard?" I looked at the dashboard of the magic school bus. There were lots of strange buttons, but one was red with a silver icicle on it. "I don't think we should touch anything without asking Miss Frizzle first," I told Arnold. "Well, I'm toasting like a marshmallow," Arnold said. "I've got to do something." Arnold reached out his hand and pushed hard on the red button with the icicle. I saw Liz try to stop him with a flick of her tail. Miss Frizzle must have seen him out of the corner of her eye because she shouted, "Arnold, no!" But it was too late. "What did I do?" Arnold yelled as the magic school bus started to shake and change shape. "You hit the big chill button," Miss Frizzle answered. Her voice sounded strained. Her eyes were fixed on the dashboard as it changed into something with all kinds of dials and flashing lights. I knew I had seen that before. The magic school bus was turning into the magic school jet. "What's happening? Where are we going?" I asked the Frizz. But my voice was drowned out by the roar of the engines. Then signs began to flash on the screens over our seats. "Fasten seatbelts! Prepare for takeoff!" The roar of the engines got louder. Suddenly we were pressed back into our seats by the force of the jet's acceleration. I looked out the window and saw the ground whizzing by. The Magic School jet was taxiing for takeoff. Uncle Cecil tightened his seatbelt and checked mine. I noticed that he looked a little flustered. After all, this was his first field trip on the Magic School Bus. "At least it's cooler in here," Arnold said. "Don't worry, Arnold," Miss Frizzle said. "You'll be plenty cool soon." I noticed that familiar twinkle in her eye, but that wasn't all I noticed. "Arnold, look," I said. "Her dress changed." We both stared at Miss Frizzle's dress. It was still mostly blue, but most of the birds had disappeared from the sky. Now there were a bunch of birds on what looked like ice. When I looked closely, I could tell they were penguins. "Miss Frizzle," Arnold asked nervously, "where are we going?" Just then, the jet took off. Soon we were cruising high above the clouds. Miss Frizzle flicked on the automatic pilot and then stood up to face the class. "Thanks to Arnold," she said, "we've just changed our plans for this field trip. Once you press the big chill button, there's no turning back. We're on an express flight to Antarctica. The big chill at the bottom of the world." "Antarctica!" at least 10 voices said at once. From the desk of Miss Frizzle: "The ends of the world. Some people confuse Antarctica with the Arctic. Antarctica is a vast area of frozen land that surrounds the South Pole. The Arctic is a huge frozen ocean that surrounds the North Pole. Antarctica is the world's coldest continent, the world's windiest continent, the world's highest continent, the world's least populated continent. "I think it's time for a geography lesson," the Frizz announced. She popped open an overhead compartment and pulled out a big world globe. Liz jumped onto the globe and pointed to Antarctica with her tail. "We're heading south," Miss Frizzle said, "all the way south." "Hey, look out the window," Carlos yelled. "I think we're over a rainforest now." We all leaned over to the windows to see. Below us was a velvety green carpet of trees. It seemed to go on forever. Miss Frizzle pointed to Brazil on the globe. "We must be right about here, just above the Amazon rainforest." Dorothy Ann was busy with her calculator. "According to my calculations," she announced, "we have gone over the equator." "You're right, Dorothy Ann," Miss Frizzle said. "Now we're in the southern hemisphere." "And it's not winter here. It's summer." "If it's summer in Antarctica," I asked my uncle, "does that mean the whole place will melt?" "Jolly good question, Phoebe," Uncle Cecil said. "But the answer is no. Even in the summer, Antarctica is freezing. In fact, if Antarctica melted, there would be so much water that the whole world would be flooded." "How many minutes until we get to Antarctica?" Ralphie asked. "I want to see some penguins." "It won't be long," Miss Frizzle answered. "Meanwhile, let's get ready." She pressed a button on the jet's control panel. A second later, the compartments over our seats popped open. Orange packages fell into each of our laps. Start putting on your expedition gear, the Frizz ordered. It may be summer in Antarctica, but you still need to bundle up. They don't call it the Big Chill for nothing.